Welcome to Decrypting IT, your go-to podcast for the latest tech trends and insights. Together, we'll break down everything from cybersecurity to managed services and cloud solutions. Whether you're an IT pro or just tech curious, we're here to share expert advice, real success stories, and actionable tips from our team, partners, and clients. Let's simplify technology, spark innovation, and navigate the ever-changing IT world together.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Decrypting IT. I'm your host, Ashley Wallace, Client Success Lead here at Catalyst Network Group. Today, we're going to be exploring Microsoft Copilot, what it is, how organizations are using it now, and next steps to help you implement its capabilities into your workflows that you can take away today. On with me is Josh Krodel, our Microsoft expert here at Catalyst. Josh is a seasoned IT professional with over 25 years experience in the industry. He's been immersed in the Microsoft ecosystem from every angle as a customer, a partner, and a Microsoft employee. His expertise spans directory services, device management, and Azure infrastructure as a service, with a strong focus on securing and modernizing IT infrastructure. Whether Josh is helping organizations navigate the Microsoft cloud or tackling complex IT challenges, he brings a wealth of knowledge and real-world insights. So we're very excited and honored to have him on with us today. So thank you so much, Josh, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We've got quite a lot to cover, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. So tell me, let's start off with the basics. What is Microsoft Copilot exactly, and how does it differentiate from other AI tools like ChatGPT, for instance?
So Microsoft 365 Copilot is an AI-powered assistant that's embedded within your Microsoft 365 apps. At its core, it's designed to enhance your productivity, automate your repetitive tasks, and provide contextual insights based on the business data within your Microsoft tenant. And that's pretty much how it differentiates itself from other AI tools like ChatGPT. They're all great tools. I use many of them as they all have their strengths and very few weaknesses. But while tools like ChatGPT act as an external assistant, Copilot is more like an AI-powered coworker that's embedded into your daily workflows by default. It accomplishes this by being deeply integrated within Microsoft 365. Has access to your business data, your emails, your meetings, and your documents, all securely. And it's context aware and personalized. So it understands, based on all of that business data, the organizational context of things. Using that business data, it's able to deliver highly relevant insights rather than generic responses. And of course, it's built on Microsoft's trusted security framework so that it ensures data privacy, governance, and compliance all in one nice package.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of people are leveraging it now. And so it's just, I think at this point, figuring out, how do they get started with it and what are the next steps? So I think you sort of answered it already, but how does Copilot integrate into M365? And, what are some of the most common use cases we're seeing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's nothing really to install. If you have Microsoft 365 already, the apps, they all have the ability to surface Copilot to you. The only thing that you need is that Copilot license. Once that's enabled for your user account, Copilot will be accessible through all of your Microsoft 365 apps. In Word, Copilot will help you draft documents, generate summaries, refine text. In Excel, it will help you analyze trends, generate reports, and create visualizations. In Outlook, it will summarize your email threads and help you draft responses, and will also prioritize those important emails as well. Teams, it will transcribe and summarize your meetings for you. It will automatically identify action items, and if you have any lead or follow-up questions to what happened in the meeting, it will answer those questions as well. And naturally, with PowerPoint, it will be able to generate slides for you based on the document content that you provide.
Got it. Okay. So I know that just, normal, people in the workforce, obviously within organizations, are leveraging like the ChatGPT, and there are some security concerns that organizations are running into, I think, with that type of implementation. Do you feel like Copilot may be a little bit more secure? There are more controls in place if a client's already leveraging Microsoft and then they're just implementing Copilot, on top of the, the current license that they hold with Microsoft. I guess talk a little bit about like the security and, safety measures between, differences between Copilot and like a ChatGPT, just somebody one-off using that.
Yeah. So with Microsoft 365, obviously that solution, that set of applications incorporates the ability to have security guardrails around the data that's contained within your tenant. And what is important to know before you start going down the road of using Copilot is it's not there by default, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You will want to do your diligence, whether it's on your own, leveraging a partner like Catalyst, to better understand what your security posture looks like within all of your data repositories within your tenant. SharePoint comes to mind. If we turn Copilot on in the environment, will a user be able to not only be able to access the data that they need and are authorized to access in order to do their workflow, but our role-based access control policies and our data lifecycle policies, are they a little bit too lenient to where if we ask the right questions, we could maybe accidentally surface information and data pertinent to the business that we're not authorized to see? A lot of people a lot of times people joke about, somebody's going to be able to, surface, the leadership's salaries and bonus plan. And, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, too, it's a very real possibility if that data is stored and, the security posture within has not been tightened down. So the functionality is there, but you'll always want to do your diligence to make sure that you have set those controls and those controls are in place, so that, we are working efficiently, but in a manner that pertains specifically to our workloads.
Do you feel like there's user training that's required or that you would recommend if a company is looking to leverage Copilot?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you'll hear, as AI becomes more and more prominent, prompt engineering and things like that. But, at the core, even for the staff that is supporting the implementation of it, yes. Yeah. I mean, you'll definitely, want, to make sure that you are, doing your diligence around making sure those things are secure. And a lot of times those things may not be as obvious to IT staff. And, that's where, Microsoft does have a lot of great information online through their blogs and their tech communities and things like that on how to further secure the usage of Copilot, but also partners like Catalyst can also help facilitate that as well. The common term is you don't know what you don't know. And in this situation, I mean, if you've got a lot of data in your repository, whether it's SharePoint or something else, over time, you may have kind of lost track as to who has access to what. And there are tools out there that can help you better understand that. But, being able to, ask the right questions and better understand if this truly needs to have access granted to it or not is, something that a lot of times does need a little bit of guidance behind.
Yeah, I can imagine that's probably pretty complicated. And I mean, does that vary depending on like the size of your organization or the vertical that you're operating in at all? Or is it kind of standard across the board?
I would say it's standard to the extent of, the same process and procedure that you would take in order to understand that. Now, obviously, different businesses have different volumes of data, and parsing through all of that information could take a significant amount of time, which, could be labor intensive for some staffs. But, it is that the procedures that you take industry to industry would be the same. But yeah, it's really just going to be dependent on the volume of data that you have that Copilot is going to have access to.
Oh, that makes sense. So, I think you sort of answered this as well, but, what should IT teams or MSPs consider when rolling out Copilot to ensure that security and data integrity? Just, dive into that just a little bit more.
Yeah. Can you like further expand on the question?
I think just, with regard to, what are we entering into? What does Copilot have access to when you roll? Because I think it's different with when I'm thinking of like ChatGPT, for instance, or those types of tools. They're not necessarily integrated into the organization itself. It's almost like an external application. And so Copilot's obviously going to be more internal and integrated. And so I'm just wondering kind of, what that looks like from the security side.
Yeah. So basically the way you should approach it is to understand that Copilot itself, as the mechanism, the tool, has access to everything in your Microsoft 365 tenant. Where the limitation comes into play is based on the user context that's interfacing with the Copilot. So, if I'm a financial user in an organization, then maybe there's a finance SharePoint site within my organization that I typically do all of my work out of. All of my data is housed there. All of the data that I need to perform my day-to-day tasks, my workflows, is housed out of that SharePoint site. Now, Copilot by default, since it's within the tenant, had access to that. But since I am a finance user and I've been granted permissions to that SharePoint site, I'm able to surface the data within that. But since I'm a finance user, but not an HR user or a marketing user, right? If your permissions have been, tuned appropriately, if you've gotten things locked down to where only marketing people have access to the marketing site and HR people only have access to the HR site, you're good. But, if you had been a little bit free flowing with permissions within your organization, then, I, as a user, regardless of what department I work in, am going to be able to access that if I prompt enough for it.
Okay. That makes sense. So it's not even necessarily external security that could possibly be a concern. It's also who has access to what different departments within an organization can also pose some possible security, risks.
Yeah.
There.
And it's not to say that there aren't external risks to it. And the reason why I say that is if somebody gains access to your environment and are able to access a Copilot, then, based on that user context, I would be able to surface data about that business, not being a member of that business, but since I've broken in and accessed something, I'm able to surface that information. Now, the way Copilot works is all of the knowledge that Copilot gets is from ChatGPT. The partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI allows an asynchronous push from ChatGPT. Everything that ChatGPT learns is pushed on a routine basis to Copilot. But it is asynchronous and it's only pushed in the one direction. Nothing from Copilot comes out of the tenant. So, we have the benefit. Yeah, we have the benefit of pulling all of this data inside and leveraging this type of information that we'd have externally while still leveraging it in a more business oriented context without the fear of it being pushed out or replicated out by any kind of mechanism. But again, if an external person does gain access to my environment and a user account that has access to Copilot, they could surface information that they shouldn't be accessing. So just something to be aware of.
It almost sounds to me like it'd be the preferred method over using ChatGPT. It seems like it would be, quote unquote, safer in some sort of way to use Copilot versus ChatGPT because there may be some less associated risk. Is that a general okay to say? Or
I think so. And I would go a step beyond that and saying since we're taking all the information that ChatGPT knows, which is a plethora. I mean, I use ChatGPT as much as I use Copilot. They both do tasks very, very well and are complementary of each other. But being able to have the external knowledge of ChatGPT available in Copilot, plus the added benefit of Copilot having access to my business data, allows me to not only, build documents and build context and things like that using external knowledge, but also knowledge about the way my business operates based on all of the data that's contained within it. So being able to pull those more specific insights into the things that I create with Copilot, plus that additional knowledge, does. I mean, it does. It does make it a very powerful tool, and almost a step above ChatGPT. And like I say, they all do things very, very well. And there are not many things they don't do well, but each one has its strengths and weaknesses, and they all do a very good job, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I've just always been curious about kind of the differences between Copilot and ChatGPT. And I just say ChatGPT because I feel like one of the main ones out there. But there's also what was there, Llama and all those other kinds of tools.
Claude and Grok, and there's a host of them out there.
Was a big one right now too. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Okay, great. I'm trying to think of some more just around like what's the cost of implementation, or kind of what does that look like? And I mean, is it feasible for small organizations as well as, like obviously enterprise usually has the larger budget for, things like that. But is there any differences there, or can anyone really leverage it?
I think anybody can leverage it. I mean, I'm one person, and I use, ChatGPT, Copilot, and others depending on what my needs are at the time. But, we work at Catalyst, and we're approximately 40-person company, and it has, there's not a day that goes by that I don't integrate some form of AI into my workflows. And then, naturally, before Copilot even was, ready for prime time, many larger enterprises like Lumen, and I think Avidnot and Accenture got like preview capabilities to using Copilot as well. So it really is a tool that is intended to enable any size of business to do things more efficiently, more productive, and really start saving more and more time, thus more and more money as time goes on.
What are some examples of, like a workflow or an activity that, someone can leverage it for? Well, let's talk about maybe like Outlook. Like how does it increase efficiency in Outlook, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, it's interesting because, of all the tools that we have at our disposal, email is still, pretty top of the line business tool that is used on a day-to-day basis. And with that comes an influx of data on a daily basis into your inbox. And, it's easy to lose track of it. It's easy to, get caught up in things that, take our attention away from some of the more pertinent things. It's easy to kind of lose track of, what the urgency is of some of these emails that are flowing into our inbox on a daily basis. So Copilot can help you organize all of that. If I'm starting the day and I know that, yesterday was really busy, I did not get to really tend to my email at all, I can have Copilot tell me, tell me about the emails, and this is very general, but tell me about the emails I received yesterday. Can you rank them in order of urgency and generate replies for me so that I can catch up, get ahead, or what have you?
Wow. It'll create a reply to your email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. It will draft. It will draft emails. It will draft documents for you. It will draft visualizations in Excel, PowerPoint. It will do a lot of work for you.
Okay, I have some good takeaways from this because I think I should just start doing that for my inbox. I don't know about anybody else, but my inbox gets crazy. I've got thousands of emails in there. Using rules to separate them into different folders and things like that. It works to a certain extent, but man, it can be pretty overwhelming. And I feel like you have definitely the opportunity to miss, some critical emails and things like that. So,
absolutely.
That's awesome. What about for like, in Teams? So I know you said it integrates into Teams as well.
Yeah. I'm sure you, me, countless other people, are often double booked or triple booked, and have to prioritize which meeting they go to. But that's not to say that the secondary or tertiary meeting wasn't just as important. So what's nice about Copilot is I can attend and put my focus specifically on the one meeting that I'm going to attend. But for the other one meeting, the two meetings, whatever that I've missed, I can go back into Copilot and tell it or ask it to give me a summary of what took place during the meeting, what kind of action items were created during the course of the meeting, and which ones may have been assigned to me, and where to go from here. And then if there's any more context that I need based on any of the data that was discussed during that meeting, I can ask Copilot follow-up questions about, okay, when does this action item need to be completed by? And some of that could be directly stated in the meeting, some of it could be assumptions that Copilot is making based on the tone and the events of that meeting specifically. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful tool for sure. I guess, my next question is really, how do you get started? Like, where do you go? If you've got a Microsoft, license, and you're trying to implement this or roll this out to teams, how do you start taking advantage of that? Or let's us that, and then let's take it and break it off into, I'm just an individual at an organization, and I'm listening to this, and I say, wow, I really want to start using Copilot to improve my efficiency. So two parts. If you're overseeing an organization, how do you get started? And then if you're just an individual user, how do you get started?
Yeah. So if you're already on Microsoft 365, it's important to note that Copilot does require one of three different tiers of Microsoft 365, and it has to be Microsoft 365, not Office 365. But if you have a Microsoft 365 E3, E5, or Business Premium license, you can use Copilot. The reason why that is because the more features and solutions that come with E3, E5, and Business Premium are much more conducive to having Copilot work for you than some of the other SKUs are. So if you have all of that, one thing that I would like to reemphasize is, again, let's just make sure that we've done our diligence within our data repository, SharePoint, wherever, that, if we're rolling Copilot out, who's going to have access to what? Who's going to be able to surface data, and the data that they're servicing, are they authorized to actually see that data? So definitely doing that security and governance policy, health check, or what have you.
First and
very
foremost.
important. It's very important. And I mean, some IT staff are very adept at doing that. Others need the help of a partner like Catalyst, which, we do for our customers as well. But once we have all of that in place, start with a pilot group, and Microsoft and other vendors like to call them centers of excellence. Basically identifying key departments within your organization. It could be IT, it could be sales, HR, finance, marketing, whatever, but some grouping of those departments, and identifying people within those departments that would be your champions. And we're not just going to say, hey, Joe user, you're going to, be, taking part in this Copilot test. No, you want to actively seek out users in these departments that are enthusiasts, that are going to be, inspired by using these new technologies. So
fully adopt, be ready to go, excited about doing it. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You want to, the people that are, really going to put Copilot through its paces are the people that really want to use it, or really any new technology in general to make their day-to-day easier. So once you identify that, identify projects within those departments, or just say, hey, instead of, pointing and clicking through this entire interface throughout your day, go to the Copilot chat within Teams or, any of the Microsoft applications, and interface with it, talk to it, see what data that you can pull from it. And is it helping you accomplish these goals and tasks on a day-to-day basis? And then just let it flow from there. I mean, if you start noticing and your users are starting to say, wow, this is a task that would take me about an hour a day, and now it takes me 5 minutes, record those metrics as you go along and start realizing that there is a significant return on investment to be made by investing in this tool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I think it can definitely be, a huge time saver, it sounds like. So we sort of talked about this too, but what are some of the limitations? Like if they start to use Copilot, are there limitations you think that you know of that people could possibly run into?
There are, and they're not really any limitations that you can't work around. Obviously the
Mm-hmm.
biggest limitation is going to be your data quality. If your organization's data is poorly structured, it's in disparate data repositories.
It's going to be less effective.
It is, because basically Copilot is really only going to be as good as the data that it has access to. I mean, it
Like a
will.
lot of things, right? Garbage in,
Right.
garbage out.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
if you have 5 SharePoint sites for different functions of finance, and it's all spread across there, and some users have access to some of them and others don't, and you know taking the time to better structure that data, just like you would for any kind of any kind of data analysis process that you would do. You think about like ETL processes and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, the better structured your data is in any scenario, the better the tool is going to function. So that is probably the biggest limitation there. You might say that Copilot being limited to Microsoft 365 and its ecosystem is a bit of a limitation, but that doesn't mean that Copilot isn't extensible. There are software vendors out there. I can't remember if Salesforce and ServiceNow are actually there yet, but I do know that they had plans for integrations into Copilot so that I could
Oh,
effectively
okay.
surface Salesforce data within Copilot. But there are some software vendors out there that are planning integrations for Copilot. Now, for those software vendors that don't, you could certainly still use tools like Power Automate, which is Microsoft's
Mm-hmm.
no-code solution. Or if you're a little bit deeper into development and programming, you could use APIs into those other software vendors to surface data from there and pull it into Copilot as well.
Okay.
Um, and then probably the last limitation that I can think of is really just how enthused and empowered are your users to actually use it effectively. I think
And maybe that's where the user training kind of comes into place, and some like an expert coming in and really helping certain teams leverage it in the way that's going to be helpful to them.
absolutely.
Um, right. So, okay.
Yeah, we've all been raised in the search engine era. We're used to
Yep.
going to Google or Bing or wherever and typing in just a blanket string. Hey, this is the data that I want to surface. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
about this topic. And I've spoken with a number of customers and even a number of friends that took that approach to using a Copilot or a ChatGPT. They're like, yeah, I just typed in what I wanted to know and I didn't really get anything back. And it's like, right. And I don't fault you for that, because yes, I mean, we were brought up on creating such significant search strings that we've almost forgotten how to communicate. And what you should keep in mind, and what I emphasize with our customers, is that, you know, imagine Copilot is your coworker. Imagine talking to
Mm-hmm.
a human, and you're going to get a lot more information out of it if you converse with it. And you don't necessarily need to surface all the information that you need over one prompt. It's a flowing conversation that you use just like you would with another
Like a
human being.
continually prompting it, letting it know, yes, this hit the mark,
Exactly.
maybe this didn't.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
okay. So you can
I
kind
mean,
of probe it to get the final information that you're looking for.
yeah, and I mean, I'll just give you an example. It's like I've often wanted to be like a software engineer or somebody that was able to code, and I'm just not. I'm just not. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, Copilot, ChatGPT, and others are very adept in giving you code based on what you describe to it. Hey, I need a tool that will do X and Y. And it will give you initial code, and then you'll go and test the code, and maybe it'll get it right the first time. If it doesn't, then you can go back and say, "Hey, Mr. Copilot, hey, Mr. ChatGPT, I got this error when running this code. What can I do to correct it?" And then it will
Oh,
interpret that and correct the code, and then you try again. And sometimes it goes on a little bit longer than you think it should, but for somebody that doesn't know how to code right off the top of their head, it has been a very powerful tool for me just in that regard.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so if I need to learn coding, I know where to go now. I don't know if that's in my future, but maybe with the help of Copilot, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Awesome. What else do you think we've covered quite a bit around Copilot? You know, different aspects. Is there anything you think that we didn't cover that you would maybe want to highlight to listeners?
No. I think we've covered it covered it pretty well from an introductory standpoint. For those listeners that certainly want to learn more, hopefully this was beneficial. But there is a wealth of information out on the internet. Microsoft has multiple different avenues to learn more about this, whether it's Microsoft Learn, which in addition to being like a how-to documentation repository, it's also a certification track where, if for any of Microsoft's products, you can get on a certification track and get certified, and AI is certainly one of them. But
Okay.
there's also, events that Microsoft holds. Microsoft Ignite is their annual conference for, I guess, what I'll call the technical infrastructure folks. But obviously, Copilot is becoming more and more intertwined with infrastructure. Copilot is still going to be a very heavy topic during those sessions. Microsoft also has a build conference, which is more developer centric, but AI is becoming more and more ingratiated into development as well. So Copilot will definitely be a centerpiece for that conference as well. And Microsoft's tech community, a whole host of blogs, forums, even contributors on LinkedIn. Both internal to Microsoft and just external enthusiasts that just are really passionate about the technology. Twitter even, or X. There is a lot of information out there that can kind of point you in the direction. And, for those of you that want more of a guided approach, a more hands-on approach through a workshop or a proof of concept or anything like that, Catalyst is certainly in a position to be able to help you walk through that as well.
Yep. Awesome. And you are hosting a webinar, and that's going to be rolled out. So they'll be able to access that. What are you going to cover in the webinar, Josh?
I'm primarily going to be focusing more on the hands-on aspect of Copilot. There will be, and just to preface things, since data security is very much a part of Copilot, there are multiple canned demos that Microsoft provides that I'll be walking through just to demonstrate the functionality of Copilot, as well as just some what's new with Copilot. Where did Copilot come from? Where is it going? Just some of that initial information there as well. But also, to kind of set the stage for those of you that are more interested in Copilot, that, everything that we cover in the webinar can be personalized. And we're happy to host a more one-on-one style of workshop for those customers that are interested in getting Copilot off of the ground. So hopefully this podcast, this webinar that's coming up, and we'll generate more interest beyond what's already out there. I know every customer is thinking about it. So
absolutely. And it's definitely going to be something that's, changing the way we're all doing business. And it's just like when the internet took off, and here we are multiple years later, and nobody knows what life was like before the internet, right? So I think it's going to be the same thing with AI Copilot. So awesome. Appreciate that. And I think the webinar is going to be really just additional resource where we can dive in a little bit further than what we have today. So that's awesome too. Thanks for giving us that info. I think we'll wrap up for today. And then any last thoughts before we...
I'll leave with an anecdote that when Copilot first started, coming to prominence, once Microsoft released it, I always thought this was really interesting. And this just gives you a general idea of how powerful or how much power AI needs. But I remember being in a course just to kind of get partners up to speed on Copilot and enabling their customers to do that. And it was really interesting for me to hear that when Microsoft cut Copilot on in all of their data centers to be able to start serving customers, the temperature within those data centers increased by 4 degrees, which is insane when you think about it. That's how much power
crazy
AI is starting to consume and generate. And as we start to swap CPUs for GPUs and even NPUs going forward, I mean, it's just going to get even more and more powerful. So, that's something to look forward to in the next few years is, Copilot and other AIs transitioning from a passive assistant to more of an active assistant where it will be anticipating things rather than waiting for prompts, which
Exciting.
can be kind of scary at the same time, but
Scary and exciting.
yeah, it will be an interesting few years coming up, I think.
Awesome. Well, I think I look forward to it. So I think most others will as well.
Absolutely.
Well, appreciate the conversation today. Thanks for jumping on again. And to listeners out there, thanks for joining us for this episode of Decrypting IT. We're helping you here to go further, faster, and safer in the world of cybersecurity, cloud, data, and managed solutions. If you found today's episode valuable discussion, don't forget to hit subscribe and give it a share. And if you have a hot topic you'd like us to cover, you can reach out to us at podcast@catalystng.com. Until next time, stay secure and stay ahead. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Take care.